So, are you DTFF?
Once again, here is Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football with your hosts, Dustin Lunt and Jake Trowbridge.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to DTFF. It is Tuesday, and we are here talking some fantasy football. What could be better?
Ow!
Oh, and that was my co-host, Jake Trowbridge, chiming in there. He is excited too, aren't you, Jake? I feel like that was a very excited woo you gave.
It's like a howl. It was a gutter. It's as close to a guttural howl as I can get.
Nice. And how are you doing this fine Tuesday?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. We're like 10 days out from the NFL draft.
Oh, I can't
Do you
wait.
realize that? It's insane. It's literally insane. And I personally can't wait to see how I'm disappointed by this thing as I am every year.
Yeah. It was Brian, our buddy. We're talking after our bowling tournament this weekend about the draft a bit and what we thought maybe the Packers were going to do. And I just said, please God, don't take a wide receiver at pick 15. Although part of me would really like it just as a big for Goody, just to be like, F you, Rodgers. Now we're getting a stud wide receiver because you were being such a dickwad for all this time.
Wait, hold on though. You don't want a wide receiver at pick 15 for the Packers. You actually are asking them to wait beyond the first round this time.
Yeah, I guess. You know what I like? I would like them to hopefully there's one of the more elite tackles that drops that we can draft to replace Bakhtiari. Just based on his comments and his last few seasons of health, it behoove us to have a tackle that could protect Jordan Love.
Behoove was a big word, and I wasn't.
Second
prepared
time
for
I've
that.
used it in about 20 minutes.
That's why you are primed and ready to use it already. I don't hate that, but man, you must really have some confidence in these receivers. One of whom we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Watson and
by
Dobbs,
the way,
absolutely. I have full confidence in the two of them.
Well, you more than I, and we will discuss that a little bit further in the chat. By the way, everybody, come hop into the chat. We love when you're here with us live, Mr. Scampers. Good evening to you as well. And I will say, so Dustin told me before we go on air. So we're doing it's a two-parter. Let's say we're doing high risk, high reward players. 2023. Spoiler alert, I am going to be talking about a Packer player there. But we're also doing one of our pop drafts. We're doing a classic video games draft tonight. Dustin told me he has not studied for this at all. He's not prepped for this one iota. So it's going to be flying off the top of your head, huh?
It is. And it's going to be rough. I'll probably do some quick Googling just to jog my memory, because I'm sure I won't remember all the games that I used to love to play.
You just got to Google your heart right here, man. That's all you need.
And how do you Google your heart? Is there a specific where's the keyboard for that?
I don't know. You might need the software upgrade. I don't know. I just do it instinctually. So I can't. Okay. I'm not an IT guy.
Well, neither am I.
Well, anyways, hey, what are you drinking? We're not drinking the same thing tonight. I don't
No,
think,
we're not.
At least we might be, but I don't.
I doubt
planned.
it. I highly doubt it. So I am drinking Tatake, a good Mexican lager. I was tricked by our local liquor store because you know me, I like my Modelo's.
Sure.
So I was gonna go get a case of Modelo, and it was like $31 for a case, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. Well, then I saw the Tatake in the shelf next to it, and it said $4.99 for a 12 pack. And I was like, well, I love Tatake. It is a great beer. It's
Yeah.
essentially the same thing as Modelo. I will just get that for half the price. No, I think
And
the
it
one
wasn't.
must have fell off the price thing.
Oh,
So it's $14.99 a 12 pack.
well.
So ended up being the same price. I'm not disappointed though because I love Tatake.
Crushed your spirits just a little bit, though. You thought you
Little bit.
got one of the old Jake specials
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
clearance closeout beer
Mhm.
that was probably expired if it was $4.99 for a 12-pack, let's be honest.
I would have been
I
still okay with it.
Expired Tecate is better than no Tecate at all.
Mhm.
I am drinking from Sierra Nevada a wild little thing. Look at that bright ass
Oh.
pink can. I love it. It's a slightly sour ale.
Oh.
And you know what? It's accurate for advertising. It is just slightly sour. I like my sours to be a little bit more sour, but this one's fine.
It's a good intro to sour beers is what you're saying.
I do believe that's true. Yeah. If
Okay.
you don't like
Good.
sours, maybe give this one a whirl and just dip your toe in.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish that one would have been around, 4 years ago when I started dipping my toes into sours. That's okay. It's neither here nor there.
It's true.
Yeah. So, Jake, I am going to be paying out one of our beer bets this evening. I just figure I got to get this going and just clear my ledger. So,
You got a ways to go.
I have a little bit of ways to go. Yes. So next one on here from the one I lost was that I said Zeke was going to be a top 10 running back last year in
Been waiting
points
on this
per
one.
game. In points per game. And that obviously did not happen, did not come close. We don't have to dig into it. Just know that I lost that one. Jake, you are an amazing fantasy football prognosticator / genius.
Boo.
Cheers, my friend.
Thank you, sir. As you throw that one back, that looked like a little bit of a frosty outside, unless that's just a mind trick.
Yeah.
Did you put that in the freezer?
Yeah. I put the
That's
shot
a
glass in the
great
freezer.
idea.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to steal that. For sure, I'm going to steal that. That's a great idea. I do that with mugs. I've never thought to do it with shot glasses.
Yeah. Keeps it nice and chilled.
You're the genius. I know you said it about me, but really, you're the genius for that move.
Well, shucks. You shouldn't.
Well, I'll tell you who's not a genius is the person who submitted their drunk trade of the week. Do we want to go ahead and jump in?
I can't wait.
Drunk, hammered drunk.
Drunk trade of the week.
Dusty, this is actually a 2 for drunk trade. We got a 2 for the price of 1, which was already free. So that's pretty great. This one come from the FFB Tech on Twitter. Was not actually submitted directly to us. It was helpfully tagged by friend of the show, Toronto Dave, as a post that we should pay attention to. And I appreciate that because here's what happened. This was a 12-team PPR Superflex League, Dynasty League. All right. So here's the setup. They were drinking Trails End 8-year bourbon. I don't know what Trails End 8-year bourbon is, but 8-year bourbon.
It sounds delicious.
I'm already excited for them for that part. I'm less excited for the trades, but I'm curious to see how you fall on this. So let's look at the first trade that happened here out of the set. So again, super flex, very important here. Sent away Lamar Jackson. So already I'm skeptical and sent away Jahan Dotson from the Washington Commanders as well. Now they did get back A.J. Brown. It's a big name. That's a big piece.
Mm-hmm.
And got a 2023 first round pick. Did not specify the actual pick itself there. So that's interesting. And then a 2023 second, actually two 2023 seconds. So first 2 seconds in A.J. Brown. Now we're talking about Lamar Jackson. I know he's going through the contract dispute, the will he won't he play this year. But if you're anything like me, you're not really too fixated on that because you know what his dynasty value is. What do you think of that first one?
This is tough. I actually don't think it's that bad a trade for the person that was receiving Lamar Jackson, you do have to overpay a little bit, especially in the super flex leagues, to get that elite quarterback. So how I view this is it's AJ Brown is like a first plus caliber.
Maybe a first and a second by himself.
Yeah.
At least. Okay.
And then you got your first. So that's basically 2 firsts and 2 seconds for Lamar Jackson, which I think is fair. And then an additional second rounder for Jahan Dotson. Okay, that's fine. So I don't think that trade in it itself is bad if you're receiving Lamar Jackson. And then obviously if you're getting the other side, you're getting a stud wide receiver in AJ Brown coming off a career year. I would expect more of the same this year. You're getting a first rounder. Hopefully it's early and a couple seconds in what is, a fairly deep class this year. So I actually don't think that that's that bad a trade considering you're drinking 8-year bourbon.
Yeah, I will agree with that part of the sentiment. For taking maybe a bath in some bourbon on the night, I think that's fine.
Yeah, how do you feel about it?
I look at it like this: Jahan Dotson basically equals out a second. So take those 2 pieces out of it. You're looking at Lamar Jackson for AJ Brown, a first and a second. If you view AJ Brown as a first and 2 seconds, now we're still talking about 2 firsts, 2 seconds for Lamar Jackson. In Superflex, I get it. I get why you might trade him for that. I would like to know what those picks actually turned out to be.
Right.
There's a very real possibility that's a back half of the first round pick, in which case I'm not that excited about that. I mean, AJ Brown is still fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not as excited.
Yeah, you're definitely right there. I would want a top 4-ish, that first rounder to be like a top 4-ish pick with the AJ Brown. The seconds earlier would be better, especially one of them have one earlier, one later. But yeah, I think you're right there, Jake. Where that first ends up really does make a big difference.
So that's a bummer that we don't know that specifically. I wasn't able to get that detail, but in the second trade, we have a little bit more detail to work with. This was a later trade, I'm surmising here. So it's still a bourbon trade, though. Let's be very clear. Still Superflex PPR Dynasty. Here's the second one. They sent away Rashad Penny, George Pickens, and a 201 in this year's rookie class. They received Jamal Williams, Rashad Bateman, Christian Watson, and a 2023 second round pick as well. This one did not say what the actual pick is. This is where I get a little bit confused here, why the 201 shows up on one side, but we're left to imagine what the other second round pick is. It's not going to be the 201. We know this.
We know that for certain.
So I don't know if there's some sort of tie-breaking mechanism that still needs to be played out in their league or something. That could very well be. But let's assume it's a mid-round second pick just to make it easy. A lot of pieces involved. So again, Rashad Penny, George Pickens, 201. Jamal Williams, Rashad Bateman, Christian Watson in a second. I have a very clear winner in my heart for this one, but who do you have on this trade?
I will take the mermaid side of Jamal Williams. Yeah. I mean, Jamal Williams, we saw what he did last year, and he will be talked about more. So I won't go into super big detail of why I like him. He's one of my players I will be discussing. Bateman, still very young, especially if Lamar sticks around. That'd be good for Bateman. Watson, we saw what he did last year. Very young, very electric. You're getting a second round pick. Rashad Penny hasn't been able to stay healthy for one single season yet. Although I do like the situation he's walking into at Philadelphia. I just still don't trust that he will stay healthy. Pickens flashed at times last year, which was great. For me, the jury is still out on him, whether he is going to be a fantasy stud. I mean, he kind of right now, he's equal to either like Watson or Bateman. Like they're kind of that same tier of wide receiver. And then, the 2 second round picks essentially wash out. I know one's obviously later than the other one, but they're both second rounders. I mean, so that's why I like the side with the more players.
We're in agreement on this one. We are a little bit split on the first one. We are in full agreement on this one. I look at it very similarly. I think Pickens and Bateman basically could be the same person right now. Bateman, we've seen more time in the league, but he's been injured so often that it's been hard to get a real gauge on him. I'm still pretty high on him. George Pickens, this gives us an opportunity to talk about a Steelers move that just went down as of today's recording. They actually went ahead and added Allen Robinson into their crew. So now it's Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and Allen Robinson. And I do view them in that order, by the way, in terms of fantasy relevance. I don't think it hurts George Pickens necessarily. It just depends on if he's going to do much work out of the slot. Probably not. Probably won't. He'll stay on the outside. But Rashad Penny, you said, I don't know if I can trust Rashad Penny stays healthy. I don't know if the Eagles staff can trust or will trust that he stays healthy. So I think that there's a good chance they add a running back in this draft because it is so deep for rookies this year. I think it's a little bit of an illusion what's going on with Rashad Penny and how awesome his value looks right now, because I just don't think that backfield's close to being done yet. So Christian Watson, still love the long-term upside, even with Jordan Love. I know people are a little bit down with him, but I still love the upside. Same with Bateman and Jamal Williams, man, just for the vibes. Just for the vibes alone, he's worth
one of my favorite players in the league. I love him, and
Absolutely.
I'm still disappointed that the Packers moved on from him because I just loved his interviews. He hits me right here in the heart bone.
He's got the key to your heart.
Sure
yes,
does.
I think overall, and to be clear, so they sent away Lamar Jackson, Jahan Dotson. They sent away Penny Pickens in the 201. So I think ultimately, yeah, it's not as bad as it could have been. You know, but I think you should have maybe just closed your phone and maybe reevaluated it the next day is all.
You're definitely getting a lot of youth with all those moves and a lot of picks. So I'm taking this as this person feels like they were kind of in a rebuild mode, and this was their move to just acquire picks in this year's draft, plus add some high upside young players that could potentially work out and score them points.
I dig it. We've seen so much worse come through these parts.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not even close to a bad. I wouldn't even call it a bad trade. I would just say it's not for me. That's how I'd say it.
Absolutely. Okay. Looks like you got some free agent updates. I know one not on here with the Robinson move to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I put these in the show sheet, and I'll be honest, I couldn't want to talk about them any less. I can say them out loud just so people hear them. But yeah, Allen Robinson with Pittsburgh, that's the biggest news out of this group, which should already
and it doesn't
tell you,
excite me one bit.
No, I'm not interested in Allen Robinson in any way. I got burned last year. I had hope last year, and it just burned me too bad. So I'm out on him. Like I said, I think he's the third most fantasy relevant receiver in that crew. These other ones, I'll just note really quick. Chosen, aka Robbie Anderson, did get signed to Miami. We know my history with Anderson. I've been burned more times than I can literally count at this point. I will not follow him to this new team. They already have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, obviously.
I think I'm going to clip this part here and just say I'm not, just so I can, when you come around after he blows up in like week 2 and has a big week, and you're going to be like, I'm back on. He's got flex appeal. And then I'm going to play this clip for you, Jake, just to remind you how many times you've been burned.
I'm going to need, if you play that clip, then please play this clip right after it of me telling future me, you're an idiot. Stop it. Be better to yourself. You deserve better. But no, I'll move past Anderson. Kansas City re-signed Justin Watson. They seem to like him a little bit later on in the season. It's depth.
I was going to say it's a good real NFL move. I don't think it has much fantasy impact. I know at one point he was a very hot name out there as far as wide receiver potential, but I feel like the fantasy potential is kind of passed him by. But he did come on for the team for real football, so it's good that he's catching on and being involved in an offense, because that's not often guys get a second, third, fourth chance like that.
That's very true. Speaking of, not really a second chance, a chance and a half, I guess. Justin Ross is who I'm looking forward to on the Chiefs this year. He had the injury, unfortunately, last year as
He
an
is
undrafted
one
free
of my
agent.
best ball guys that I've been drafting late.
Last round flyer kind of guy.
Yeah, I like him because I mean he has all the talent in the world. If it were not for that injury, he probably would have came out as like the number one wide receiver last year. Or he was definitely in that he was in that conversation, absolutely. From people that are much smarter than me that I listen to.
Sure.
So yeah, it's worth taking that flyer late in best ball. It'll be interesting to see come redraft time if he's like healthy in camp and if there's any any good news, any fire there that he might be someone you could get on the cheap come redraft season that might actually have some fantasy impact in that offense.
Yeah, agreed. The hype's already there. He's practicing with Patrick Mahomes. They've already shown some pre-camp workouts together, so that's neat. This last bit is just interesting from an injury perspective. The Cardinals added Jeff Driscoll to the quarterback room. They already added David Blau earlier this offseason. Now they have two injured quarterbacks. Kyler Murray obviously is the starter when healthy. I don't know. And then I forget who the second in command there is. Is it Chase somebody?
Chase Daniel.
There you go. Okay. And I guess he would hypothetically be the number two, but he's also hurt. So they don't know what to expect. So I think they're just adding safety.
Yeah.
Really.
Warm bodies.
But Driscoll could legitimately start a few games if both of those guys are hurt. So if you're in a Superflex Dynasty League and you really have bench space to burn, then pick them up. But otherwise, leave them be.
That's right. Okay. So should we get into the meat of our episode here? Some of the high risk, high reward players for this upcoming season.
Let's get into the meat, man. I'll jump in. I'll put my meat out there first. I can do that.
Oh, that's very bold of you.
Don't even have to ask me. I'm just going to put my meat out there. The first one, and it's because we just talked about him, the drunk trade. I want to talk about Christian Watson. Definition. I think when I put these words together, high risk and high reward, this is the name that comes to mind for me. So I wanted to make sure that I talked about him. And we saw last year what the reward can be. Very slow start to the season. The crucial drop in his first pass from Aaron Rodgers, which has just been hammered into the dirt by this point. But he took some time after the injury, then came back midway through the season, started really gaining some steam. And he was a touchdown maestro for about 4 games. There was an 8-game stretch towards the end of the season where he was just really great for fantasy. And I will not take that away from him. What I am a little bit curious about is how much can we rely on touchdowns to bolster his fantasy production? And does he really need them? If you look at last year, he needs them. Because again, those 4 games where he was scoring like crazy, that was 72% of his fantasy points were in those 4 weeks. Because he scored 8 touchdowns. He had 9 touchdowns all season, 8 in that 4-week span. One of them a rushing touchdown to boot. That's pretty massive. Do we expect Jordan Love in his first true year playing, to put him in a position to score that frequently at that type of pace? I would suggest cautiously no. That's not what I'm expecting. Even though there was a game where Jordan came into the game for an injured Aaron Rodgers against Philly. And he looked good, and he made Christian Watson look good, or vice versa, which is kind of what I suspect. Christian Watson maybe made Jordan Love look good because he took like a 60-yard little nothing pass to the house. And that was kind of it. He can do that, and that's amazing. And that's why he has such a high reward. Because I'm not saying Tyreek Hill, but the explosiveness is there like that, where it just takes these couple of chunk plays, and then you're great for the week. You're all set. I just can't quite get on board with where he's currently being drafted, at least in best ball. In best ball, he's like a 4th round guy. He's a top almost a top 12 wide receiver in best ball, top 15, I think at least. And that's I'm not there, especially for redraft. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I love his upside, and obviously as a Packer fan, love that we have him and he's on our team. Very raw coming out of North Dakota State, D2 school. But yeah, did Rodgers make him last year with those, all those touchdowns? I do expect regression there, but as you also said, he has that ability to take a short pass and take it to the house or, get big chunk yards. So that ability doesn't go away. And maybe that's will be more of his game is between the 20s, kind of being more of a yak monster doing short passes as opposed to trying to do the long bombs that Rodgers would do and then be that red zone target because he is a very tall man. Uh, so he is a great red zone target where we don't have a lot of those options in Green Bay as far as those big bodied tall wide receivers that can go up and get the ball. So if this offense moves, I think opportunity is there in the red zone for him. I Where he's going right now though in best ball and where he'll probably end up going in redraft this fall is going to be probably too rich for me and how I draft.
Yeah.
But
That's
the
thing.
upside is definitely there.
For sure. And that's the whole point here. It's like, yes, they could absolutely win you that league. And so if you're comfortable with it, draft them. And I'm not saying not to draft them, but there is very inherent risk, especially because I don't believe they're done adding to this wide receiver crew.
Right.
That's the other big part.
And we don't know. Like we don't know what a non-Aaron Rodgers led offense looks like for an entire season here under LaFleur. Like this offense could theoretically sputter. I mean, it could be just a ground and pound with Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, and that's it. Like the wide receiver, it could get real ugly. So we don't know. I don't think that's what it's going to look like. I think it'll look the same type of offense, probably just not quite as much volume to the wide receivers. But yeah, I mean, we really don't know at the end of the day.
Scary. We got the scaries about it. All right. Who do you want to talk to here or talk about rather? You can talk to him too if you want.
Well, I want to talk about in this trade that we talked about, our drunk trade. That's Jamal Williams, my favorite mermaid. He had an unbelievable season last year. He finished as running back 13, buoyed by 17 touchdowns, all on the ground. He was the vulture, much to my chagrin for DeAndre Swift. Left Detroit after the season, moved down south to the dirty South, New Orleans. They're like, oh, we have Alvin Kamara. You kind of expect him to have a similar type role, especially as Kamara's getting a little bit older. Use him more as that satellite receiving back, where Jamal can kind of be that ground and pound. But the upside comes in this year with this potential suspension for Kamara, and I think most people in the fantasy industry here, we expect Kamara to be suspended for at least a handful of games, probably at least 3 or 4, up to like 6.
Like 6 at least that's my personal
right.
6.
So if that's the case, I mean, he steps into that number 1 role for up to 6 weeks of the season. So that upside is there. He can catch the ball really well. He runs the ball really well. It's just a matter of, do you believe in this offense? They have Derek Carr. You've got Chris Olave. They've got an okay defense. So, I mean, yeah, they can move the ball. I forget about Michael Thomas because he's been a non-factor for so many years, but he is still on the team and presumably healthy. So, yeah, this offense could move the ball. And if he's stepping into a number 1 role for 6 weeks out of the season, he could be a real value with where he's going in drafts right now.
Yeah, honestly, my only The risk part for Jamal Williams comes to me because I don't think his draft capital. I mean, we'll see once it gets closer to the year with the suspension news. That will determine everything with his draft capital. But also, I am a little bit worried for his sake that the Saints are going to add another really solid running back in the draft. And now, if they do that, and if Alvin Kamara's suspension is less than what I would think, or it's not super hefty, now maybe there's a little bit of a three-headed monster in that backfield, because I could see that as a realistic thing playing out. But the good news is for redraft, all of that will be clarified, at least for you.
Yes.
So it's just, can he get into the damn end zone like the boss that he is again this year?
That is the $1 million question.
And I do not have $1 million answer.
All right. Who are you on to next?
Not $1 million man, at least in your eyes. I'm talking about Amari Cooper. You love to hate him, don't you? Sometimes you hate to love him, I guess. Last year, you kind of hated to love him because he did come on despite your best wishes, I guess, or your worst wishes for him. He came on pretty decent. But that was with Jacoby Brissett. And the Browns were interesting last year because their damn new quarterback was out until week 13, I believe it was, when Deshaun Watson finally came back. And when Deshaun Watson did come back, he looked bad. He looked like somebody who hadn't played football in 2 years because he hadn't played football in 2 years. And so Amari Cooper, along with the rest of the team, suffered for that in terms of fantasy production. And Amari Cooper's splits were devastating, honestly, with Watson versus without. There was about a 5-point PPR difference per week. He had twice the touchdown rate with Jacoby Brissett as he did with Deshaun Watson. That's as much a knock against Watson as it is a kudos for Brissett, I think, for actually handling that offense incredibly well. But it's not even just the quarterback situation this year that gives me a little bit of pause. Yeah, Deshaun Watson could come back after a full off season and practicing with the guys, and maybe he looks like his old self. And that'll be great. But there is a little bit of a concern for Elijah Moore being added. I know a lot of people have written him off. He got brought over from the Jets this offseason. The Jets did not like Elijah Moore last year. They loved him the year before, and he looked great for them the year before. He could very well be this offense's Will Fuller, if we want to use old analogies from Watson's time with the Texans. I think that he could be the Will Fuller type. That leaves a little bit of uncertainty for Amari Cooper. I mean, maybe probably a lot more for Donovan Peoples-Jones, who people were expecting to break out even further this year. But that also just gives me cautious about Cooper. They're still a run-heavy offense at heart, I think. And so Nick Chubb ain't going anywhere. Amari Cooper's draft capital hopefully doesn't make him too risky, but I still think there's a pretty decent risk that he is the 800 to 900 yard guy with a few touchdowns, as opposed to the 1,000+ yard, 130 target guy that we would expect hypothetically for him to be this year.
Now, with Deshaun Watson being back, played part of the year last year, full offseason in this offense, do you expect this offense to take a step forward and maybe change their philosophy a little bit? I know they've traditionally been more of a run-heavy offense, the Kevin Stefanski offense. Nick Chubb is getting another year older. He is on his second contract and kind of hitting that fantasy age cliff. Do you expect them maybe to move towards more of a pass heavy offense and less of the run, considering they have that quarterback now that can throw the ball, is accurate downfield, like I said, has another offseason in this playbook and working out with the players and all that other stuff that we love?
It's the hope. It's the dream scenario is that exactly plays out, and it absolutely could play out that way. But with his downfield accuracy too, the other thing is is that really going to be, is Amari Cooper going to be his downfield guy if that's how things shake out?
I'm just saying, maybe not downfield, but I mean, he is a more accurate quarterback, So, and, Kareem Hunt is gone. Say what you will about what
Mhm.
Dearness Johnson, he went to Jacksonville. So it's like
Yep.
there's not that depth behind Nick Chubb right now, which probably means they'll draft someone later or a couple guys. But I think what made that offense work is that they had that kind of 1-2 punch with Chubb and Hunt that they could rely on those guys more. And let's be honest, the quarterbacks they've had there didn't really inspire confidence of them being able to take that shoulder the team and lead them down the field. And it's nothing against Brissett or Baker or any other litany of quarterbacks that
It's a
have
little bit
started there.
about Baker, isn't it? It's a
So
little bit against him.
so it's just, now that they have someone much more accomplished at the helm with a lot more ability, it'll be interesting to see if this offense changes. And if so, I don't think, I think Cooper, you could expect the same type of season that he had last year.
Yeah, and I think that is the reward that you hope for with a guy like him. So that's why, again, I just think it's tumultuous, but yeah, the upside is 1000% there for him.
Yeah, and I think he's someone I'll probably be going after in redraft this year because I don't think the hype is going to be there. And he finished top 10 last year. Um, and for good reason, people have been down on him. I've had my ups and downs with him too. I've been on that roller coaster, but I'm also not afraid to change my opinion. And he's someone, especially if his price stays a little deflated come redraft, he's someone I will probably end up buying into just based off the season he had last year with the quarterback that he was playing with for most of the season.
Nice. Well, I look forward to our roles reversing on Amari Cooper here, as they were definitely polar opposites a couple of a few years ago, but it's good. We can change. We can adapt. All right. Who do you
That's
want to
right.
talk about here next?
Let's see. I want to talk about Mike Evans, someone that is perpetually just undervalued. But coming into this season, I think he is a risk, but he very well could return the same value he has every single year he's been in the league. Like he's never had less than 1,000 yards. And I think there's only been one season where he's had less than 5 touchdowns in a season. So very consistent. I think half the seasons he's had double-digit touchdowns. So, I mean, he's been a fairly consistent wide receiver year in and year out. And the disrespect this guy is getting is crazy. Now, I know Tom Brady's gone and they've got Baker there now or Kyle Trask. One of those two will most likely be starting unless they end up taking a little bit later in the draft one of these rookie quarterbacks. But there's still nothing saying that person would end up starting. So, you're probably looking at Baker, let's be honest, as the veteran that's going to get the nod. Um, and that just doesn't inspire a ton of confidence. But Mike Evans is not a guy, you just throw the ball up to him. He's going to high point it, he's going to come down with it. Huge red zone target. So, assuming the Bucks actually can move the ball, get down to the red zone, I would expect him to have those like 2 touchdown games or 3 touchdown games. He'll be a great best ball buy this year. For sure. But where he's probably going to end up going in drafts, I know he's got the name recognition, but I still think people are just going to be like, "Ooh, I don't like that situation, the offensive situation." So I think he's going to end up sliding, and he could end up paying off big, but big bust potential as well. Because if that offense sputters, I mean, you're looking at just a whole fucking just big pile of doo doo. And I didn't even bring up that Chris Godwin last year was recovering from that ACL injury.
Right.
He's a full year removed from that now, so I expect him to kind of return to form. So you still have that 1A, 1B on the team, and which one of them is going to step forward as the bigger fantasy producer, or are they just going to both kind of falter because they don't have a great quarterback playing for them?
Yeah, I think it totally depends on who their quarterback is as to which of those two guys prospers for fantasy. Because I could see if Baker is the quarterback for the vast majority of the season, yeah, he can throw a jump ball up to Mike Evans, and he's willing to do that time and time again. We've seen it constantly.
Yeah.
And whether it was with the Rams this past year or with the Browns before that, he'll do that. So I think Mike Evans absolutely has the potential. He's wide receiver 32 right now in best ball drafts. That's fucking
It's criminal.
bonkers.
It's criminal.
So bonkers. I'm taking that every single time. I think I've
Mhm.
drafted him in literally every best ball I've done thus far.
I've
And I will
gotten him in a
continue to.
couple. I think 2 of the 3 I've done so far. I think I've gotten him because it's just like he's still sitting there, and it's just like,
It's crazy.
especially in best ball, because like I said, he's going to have those like 2 or 3 touchdown games. He may not have the yards, but he's going to get the touchdowns, which is going to buoy him.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's going to be great.
Honestly, I mean, all the guys that we're talking about here are perfect for best ball because that's the mentality, right? You got to take the risk because the reward is what it is. You don't play safe there, and none of these guys are safe. And that includes my last guy here, which is Calvin Ridley. Not a safe player. I know people are very excited for his return. I'm excited for his return.
Absolutely.
I think it's bullshit that he had to sit out a year in the first place. But him moving from the Falcons to with the Jaguars, which is our like second favorite team now, we might as well change the colors of this thing from green and yellow to the Jaguars.
No. We'll never do that.
Okay.
Well, maybe not never. Maybe we can just occasionally.
Maybe like an episode or two. Maybe like an episode we'll make it a special Jaguars color.
Like the AFC South.
Sure. Yeah. Oh my God, we're going to be the homers for the AFC South episode.
Oh, totally.
But anyways, Calvin Ridley being with the Jaguars and being with Trevor Lawrence, that is all fantastic. In theoretical world, at least he has been away for a year. That's the reality of it, as much as we didn't want it. He is coming back to an offense that was doing fantastic without him last year, especially as the season wore on. We saw basically what was a true rookie year for certainly Travis Etienne, who was injured in his real rookie year. And Trevor Lawrence had to deal with Urban Meyer and his bullshit his entire rookie year. I don't even count that as a year. That is, he had to babysit. He wasn't even being able to quarterback. He had to like babysit that year. So in their first season together, rather, that Jaguars offense looked fantastic. And Christian Kirk looked really, really good. And I think people assume that Calvin Ridley steps into this offense and takes over and is the de facto number 1 receiver now. I don't see that as a given. Christian Kirk could absolutely retain that role, and which would not mean that Calvin Ridley is bad. Calvin Ridley could still be fantastic as the second guy or the 1B, whatever you want to say. But in best ball, which is the only frame of reference we have for ADP right now, that's legitimate. Calvin Ridley is going at least a round ahead of Christian Kirk, and that just does not make sense to me. These are guys that should, if anything, be going back to back. I think as the offseason wears on and we get to see more of Calvin Ridley out there, hype's going to intensify because we're just so excited for him to be back that I think his ADP is going to crest up. I think there's going to be a big gulf between Ridley and Kirk, in which case I'm going to be the guy taking Kirk everywhere. Again, doesn't mean Ridley will be bad, but I think that the expectations need to be tempered a little bit for him.
Yeah, I agree. We saw what that offense did last year, and it clicked really well. I love the addition, especially for the offense in general. As you said, we're kind of homers for Jacksonville now here, unabashedly. I don't care. I am proud of it. But it'll be interesting to see how he fits in, just knowing he's been out. Yeah. Is he in football shape? I would assume so, but we don't know. Is he going to pick up on this offense? I mean, there's just a lot of question marks there. The talent that he showed when he was with Atlanta was unquestionable. Like he was awesome. Granted, that should still be there, but I don't know. It's a lot of question marks, and it'll be interesting to see how this team how the ball gets distributed, basically everything you said. I agree with you. Not much to add there.
Yes. By the way, do you want to take a guess at how old Calvin Ridley is? By the way?
28.
Yeah, that didn't seem like a guess. That seemed like you were acutely aware. He is 28, will be 29, turning 29 here in the middle of the season. He seems a lot younger than that, but
I know that because I've done some research on Calvin Ridley, and
you son of a bitch.
Well, not for the show specifically, just in this offseason. It's like because he's one of those most polarizing players that we really don't know what's going to happen.
For sure. For sure. All right. Who do you want to wrap up here with?
All right. I'm going to end with Daniel Jones. Finally going to get a quarterback in here. Um, he finished last year. I got to change my sheet here. Hold on. Bad
Change your
podcasting.
sheets. Jeez.
He finished as QB9 last year. So he had a very good season with basically 0 wide receivers on his team. The reason that I put him on this list is high risk, high reward. As of right now, they haven't done much to bolster that wide receiver core. They have like a lot of wide receiver 2s on their team, but no alpha to really take that to be that centerpiece, the focal point of that offense. They did bring in Darren Waller, assuming he stays healthy. I do expect him to kind of be that de facto target hog. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the draft because they could take a wide receiver, one of these studs, and insert player X as the stud wide receiver that will be funneled all the targets. They're going into year 2 of this offensive scheme, and we saw what they did in year 1. So you really got to that you have to think that there's going to be that next step of improvement with them. They still have Saquon there, so they still have that very balanced running game. Daniel Jones has that sneaky rushing upside as well. So I mean, I do expect him to do well, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I mean, he had only 3,200 yards passing, which is really on the low end. Had 15 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. Great. Love that ratio. Had 700 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns on the ground as well. So there is that sneaky upside that you love to have, which is why he ended up in the top 10. If he puts up those same amount of stats, yeah, he'll probably be in the top 10 again this year. But with the lack of a true wide receiver 1 on the squad, that's what really gives me pause. I don't know if it was just they caught lightning in a bottle last year where things just worked out where the wide receivers were able to get open and have some big games, or if it was just more, maybe it is the scheme that was brought over there and that's what works for those receivers. And it really is scheme related. And if that's the fact, well, then I would expect more of the same thing.
Yeah, I think Brian Dable can make a lot of gold out of a lot of crap, it seems like. And yeah, it's just weird. There's no elite receiver. There's some elite, like adjacent guys there that are good, like you said. Saquon Barkley still holding out off of his franchise tag, which is interesting. We'll see how long that stretches in. That could be a concern for Daniel Jones.
I don't think so.
I would be concerned if that got serious. I'd be concerned for it.
Right.
But yeah, there's nothing we're not suggesting he will hold out the whole season, but that's something to watch. And yeah, I think it kind of falls on Darren Waller. So I'm into it. I think that he could. I don't think that he can do better really than what he did last year. But if his ADP stays suppressed, that's still fantastic return on value. So I'm into him if that happens.
Absolutely.
Whew. We got some risk. We got some reward out of the way. I feel confident about that group. Well, no, I don't. That's kind of the whole point, I guess, is that we don't feel that confident. But maybe we will over time. Maybe as the offseason progresses, we'll get some confidence in these guys.
Now, maybe.
I know where you're not confident, which is this draft that we have coming up here. So we're switching gears. Let's move away from football. Let's wrap up the episode with another one of our fun pop drafts. We've done everything pretty much at this point. We've done music, we've done movies, we've done television. What we haven't done just yet is video games. So we're going to rectify that. And we're going to do it the way that we know how, because I'm not going to speak for you, Dustin, but I am not a connoisseur of modern video games. That's not me.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I stick to the classics. That's all I have. So we are doing a classics video game draft. This is going to be exclusively for games PlayStation 1 and previous. All right, so nothing beyond PlayStation 1. We're not even doing Xbox here.
Right.
All right. That's
And
how
we're not doing it. Is this include N64?
it
So I
does.
feel like
Yeah, because that came
oh,
before PlayStation. Yeah,
did it?
I think so.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. If it didn't, we'll include it anyways. Because I
Okay.
thought about N64 while I was doing this.
Okay.
Let's put it this way. Basically, we're talking original Nintendo, Super Nintendo,
Right.
Sega Genesis, N64, PlayStation, whatever weird shit fell in the middle of that. Sega Dreamcast, whatever you want to throw in there. But that era, at least, let's say.
Right. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. So do we do the pick the wheel? Do you want me to pull that up? And
I mean,
we kind
we
of
can
have
always
to.
rock, paper, scissors, but I know you don't like to do that. You like to default to the wheel because the wheel prefers you.
No, it
Just
doesn't.
say it. Yes, it totally
It
does.
does not. You're such a liar.
Absolutely does.
All right, here we go. Let's spin the wheel.
You son of a bitch. I knew it. I knew it. He says the wheel doesn't favor him. And then what does that fucking wheel do immediately? It just shoves that in my face. How dare you?
I don't know that
All
I
right.
want the first pick, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
I figured you absolutely wanted the first
Well,
pick.
I mean, now because here's my thing. I didn't think
Uh-huh.
N64. I mean, the N64 was included in this,
Yep.
which it makes it a very obvious 101.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take GoldenEye.
Fucking
No
idiot.
preamble here.
This is what I was assuming with the 101.
Yes.
And so when you said that you didn't want it, I should have went in for a trade, I guess,
should
at that
have.
moment. But you wouldn't have done it.
All right.
Not once you
2
knew
picks,
N64,
Jake.
So. All right. I'm gonna go for my top one. I'm not even gonna do this projecting what you're gonna take. I'm just gonna take my favorite video game of all time. It's Super Mario Brothers 3, the original Nintendo. It's a perfect game. Frustrating? Yes.
Yes.
But perfect as it stands. All the
Love
suits,
it. Love it.
all the level changes. It's fantastic. Now here's where it gets a little bit tough because there's a big top. My tier for video games now gets really big, but now I do have to project what you're gonna maybe take. I don't know that you would take this, but I don't want to risk it. I am taking NBA Jam.
Oh,
In
good
fact,
choice.
I'm gonna make it the tournament
TE.
edition.
You're gonna take the TE, huh?
Yeah. I'll abbreviate it TE because that's too fucking long there. But yeah, TE is absolutely the way to go. You can play as the Beastie Boys in that if you have the right cheat code.
That is a great choice, Jake. I love that game. I still play NBA Jam whenever I fire up my little console. I that is one of the games I play every single time. I love it.
You have that
so
magic
much.
console that's lets you play a bunch of old school games like all in one.
Yep.
So good.
Yeah, it's the best. Okay, so I got 2 picks here. I just have to go with games that I love to play and they're my favorites.
That's what you got to do, man.
I just can't try to like play the field here and I'm not gonna try to pander for votes here either. I know. So I am gonna take here for PlayStation Twisted Metal 2, one of my favorite games of all time. Again, still play it now. It is amazing.
Love Twisted Metal 2. We diverge because I prefer the original. That's the only difference, but they're both glorious games.
Yes. Yeah. Love it. Lots of fun. There is a game I do want to take, but I don't think you're going to take it.
Okay.
The next one I am going to take here is Mario Kart.
Oh,
for the Super Nintendo, not Mario
Super
Kart 64.
Mario Kart.
Yeah, I'm taking Super Mario Kart. So for the NES.
Look, I thought
that is the one I played first.
Yeah.
And that's the one I spent all my time playing. So that is why I took that one over the N64.
Yeah, I mean, both are fantastic. I agree with you, by the way. I grew up on the original one, so that's what I would have defaulted to as well. I thought about putting that instead of NBA Jam. I just really wanted NBA Jam, and that's on me. for thinking I could slip something by. I am going to have a tough decision here. Do I go really, really old school, which is probably what I'm going to do, or do I make it a little bit recent? I'm going to go really, really old school. I'm going to take one of my other all-time favorite games, Mike Tyson's.
Oh, great choice.
Great choice. The experiences I've had playing his little mini Mac there, and how many times I have had to use the cheat codes that you get after you ascend to each level of, boxer. I've never beaten Mike Tyson. I was about to lie and say I've only beaten him once just to sound cool. I've never beaten him. I don't know why I was about to lie.
I've never beaten him either. Don't worry.
All right. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better. For my second one, I'm going to keep the fighting aspect in line here. I'm going to go with a little game called Tekken 3 for the PlayStation. It's the greatest fighting game ever made. I stand by that. Again, my knowledge tops out at like 2009, so I'm not the greatest resource, but in my head, greatest fighting game ever made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't fault you for that. Not my go-to. I was never much of a Tekken player. So I'm going to take my preferred fighting game of choice, and that is Mortal Kombat 2. It's, and again, that's the one I played. It's nothing against Tekken or any of the other fighting games, but that was the one. Like, you had the finishing moves, you had the blood cheat, the blood code,
baby.
Yeah, like it was great.
I had Mortal Kombat 2 on my list, and I only saying that because it was Mortal Kombat 2, not 1, not 3, not anything beyond. It was 2 for me.
Yep. Smurfly.
All right, what's up next for you?
All right, up next here, and I'm looking at all the different consoles here, top games.
Sure.
I think I'm gonna go with The Legend of Zelda, the original.
I suspected you would say that. And can I tell you something right now? I've never played a Zelda game.
Oh, they're fun. I enjoy them. The original is the one I've played the most, obviously, but I do enjoy them all for the little bit I played them.
Yeah, I feel like I need to go back and revisit that. There's a couple of other games I've never played. I'm not going to say right now in case you're going to take some. I want you to push those as far back into the draft as possible, so I'm going to wait. I am going to take a game. Actually, I think you and I played this not too long ago on some, cold fucking Wisconsin winter day when there was nothing else to do. Pretty sure we fired up the NFL Blitz action, and god damn it, is that game fun. Also frustrating because it's anarchy. It's complete chaos. There's no semblance of real football in there, but that's okay. It's my two favorite things, football and like wrestling combined. What's not to love about that? Here's where I think I could maybe snipe you on something. But if I do, there's a good chance you come back and screw me over on a different game. So I'm going to go with my heart instead of my brain. I am going to take the original Contra.
Yeah.
For the NES.
I was hoping that would make it back to this one. I wish I would have taken Contra over Legend of Zelda. I'm not going to lie. It was kind of a miss at my point there. Great pick, though. I can't believe it made it this long. Let's be honest. That is such a great game. It's the Konami code. It's the original Konami code.
I was just about to say, man. That's all you need. 99 lives. That's the only way you're getting through that shit, by the way.
That's right.
All right. Well, you get two now. You get to return the favor here. There was one game I left on the board that I really hope makes it back to me, but I wanted Contra.
Oh, geez. Here. Let's see. I think there's one game I haven't picked that I don't think you're going to take, so I'm going to hold off. Actually, there's two of them I think you're not going to take.
Okay.
So I'm going to hold. I'm going to
assumption.
I know. So I think with this first one, actually, there's a game I think you might want. It's not one of my favorites, but I know you love the game. So do I snipe you? And
it's not even one of your favorite games.
Do I just
You just
snipe
said
you
it.
because?
Just to be
Or
an asshole.
yeah. Or I mean, I've played it. It's just not one that I've been very good at. Let's put it that way.
Look, man, you can do what you want, but I'm about to throw fisticuffs if it's a game that
No,
I'm
I
playing.
won't. It's fine. I'm gonna take here Resident Evil 2.
Ooh, I have to show. I'll have to show you on my screen because otherwise you're not going to believe it. Every time it's Resident Evil 2, it's always the sequel.
Always.
Except for Twisted Metal for me. Again, that's the original one. But like, it's Mortal Kombat 2 and Resident Evil 2. They figured some shit out in the sequels that they didn't get in the original game.
That's right. All right. So my next pick here. What do I want to take? I want to take Sonic the Hedgehog, the original.
Nice.
I mean, it shouldn't have lasted this long. Let's be honest. And I know there's some people that like 2 better than 1, but give me the OG.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
need
a
Tails.
great
I
game.
don't need any of the other characters. Just give me Sonic.
Yeah, I think a lot of this game draft falls into like, which camp were you? Were you a Nintendo person? Were you a Sega person, etc.? And I think that it kind of played a factor because I kind of forgot about Sonic the Hedgehog because I wasn't a Sega kid. I didn't have
I wasn't
access
either.
to it.
See, I had the Nintendo slash Super Nintendo. I had a friend that was Sega Genesis, so I got the best of both worlds where we would switch out and play that. So
You lucky bastard.
yes.
Well, I'm gonna go back to my safe space. I'm gonna go back to my Nintendo because I need to, and I am going to take Double Dragon. Double Dragon, it's nice because it's a solo or a 2-person. You can do co-op. You can also fight each other. It kind of has everything built into it. It has those Bilbo things too, which are a lot of fun. And there was a movie made out of it around the same time that the original Mario movie got made, which was equally terrible, but also really, really fun. It had the cop from... He had T-1000. It had the T-1000 from Terminator 2 as like the bad guy. I loved it. It was awful. I'm going to follow that up with more Nintendo, and I'm going with Super Metroid.
Good choice.
Love me some Super Metroid.
Very good choice. So I've got 3 picks left here.
You sure do. You've got some space to work with. Now, you apparently have 2 games that you don't expect that I'll take it all.
No.
So you have some operating room, if you believe that to be true.
I do, but I just there's a lot of games that I just love though that I just don't feel like I should cut them out.
These are the hard decisions, man. They have to be made.
All right. Well, a game I love. Again, I'm just got to go with my heart here. A game I love. I'm going with Medal of Honor.
Ooh.
Love that game. Still play it. The original one. I never got into the sequel ones, which I'm sure they're equally as awesome. But that original one, there's just something I just love about that. And then I'm going to follow up with Super Mario World.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I love that. That's my favorite Mario game of them all, to be honest. Spent countless hours beating that game. It's great.
Is it because you got to ride Yoshi around? Because that's the first game you got to ride Yoshi around, and that shit was
when it's
fun.
all the hidden levels that they have, and it's just great.
It's pretty fantastic. I'm kind of regret 10 is almost too few for something like this, but it has to be done. There has to be cut off because now I'm looking. There's like 5 that I really want to fit in here. Maybe if I type them really small in the entry spots, I can get it to work. Oh my God, this is so difficult. I hate this. Why did I do this to us? Look, I'm going to take this one because if I don't, I'm going to feel like an asshole. I spent too many hours playing Doom to not put this on this.
That was
list.
one I was thinking about. And for me, it was Final Doom on the PlayStation.
Oh,
I spent so many hours playing that one because you could link up your PlayStations on 2 TVs, so you could play deathmatch against each other on the Doom levels, or you
That's
could play tag team,
fantastic.
where like the spawn of the demons was like double of normal, so it was just a bloodbath. It was so fun, so fun.
Wow.
But
Wow.
that is a great choice, though.
I want to play your version now. Mine sounds stupid by comparison. All right, I saved this one for last because I knew there was no chance you were going to take this. I think we've even talked about the fact that you've never played this game. It's one of my all-time favorite games of any genre. It is Metal Gear Solid
I
for the
almost
original
sniped you on that
PlayStation.
one after you
Is
took
that the one you
Contra.
were
That was
thinking
the
about?
one, yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
And if you didn't take it, I was gonna call it out immediately after my last pick to make you feel like a dick for forgetting it.
That's
But
fair.
yeah,
That's fair. It's so good.
yeah, I played it a little bit. I have never. That was just one game I never got into, but I know it's very popular. People love it. Um, I think it's a very solid 10th round pick for you.
I appreciate that. Now you have the honors of taking Mr. or Mrs. Irrelevant with the last
You know what?
game.
In this game, I'm sure it's one that a lot of our listeners out there will probably not be familiar with. It's a very off the wall game. It's one of my favorites.
Is
It's
it?
Toe Jam and Earl.
Yes.
I love that game so much. It's so ridiculous.
Oh.
It's so fun. I've never beaten it. Like I've never beaten it. I've gotten close. Someday I will, when I can just spend like 5 hours concentrating on beating this game. It's so fun though. It's so fun. I love it so much. And I knew that I had to take it.
I've heard you talk about this game so many times. And I just remember the first time I heard the name of it, I thought that you were just stoned out of your gourd. And honestly, I didn't even think it made any sense, but I think the creators of the game probably were. So
Probably.
that actually does track. Man, there was some ones that were really hard to leave off. Like I'll tell you my honorable mentions here. There was a WWF Attitude game that I loved for the PlayStation.
Oh,
I
Royal
loved
Rumble was one of my favorites.
Oh, I love the Mega Man series. I was a big fan of those. I loved Tomb Raider. I just couldn't work Tomb Raider into this thing. One for you, I'm curious, didn't make the list that I thought was. I thought you were saving this one to the end because you didn't think I would put it in, which was Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I enjoy that game, but I never really got super into it. But I do love those like just those types of games. Street Fighter did not make the list, which I love, but I took Mortal Kombat. So it's like, I didn't want to double up. Madden football did not make the list.
It's gonna be some mad people listening to this.
I played that so much in college on the PlayStation, like Madden 97. That was like the go-to, or Madden 98. Like those were like my golden years. Love that. I probably should have put that on, especially since this is a fantasy football podcast, which kind of got me into the whole dynasty aspect of fantasy football. You got to build your own team and everything. Earthworm Jim, I love playing that game.
It's a good one. Crash Bandicoot, that's a good game I forgot to put in here.
I never really got into that one a lot. I played it a little bit. I like it, just never
it's a
was
Sonic the Hedgehog type of game, so you already covered that base, I think.
Turtles 2.
Is that the one you have to swim a lot?
No, that's the first one. It's the arcade one. It's the arcade one where you in the arcade you could play 4-player, but for I think it was for Super Nintendo, you can only play 2-player. That one was super fun. There's so many games, especially with the NES. I mean, we didn't hit like Excite Bike,
Paperboy,
Duck Hunt.
Duck Hunt. Oh my God, we didn't put Duck Hunt in here.
I mean, the original Mario, shooter. Like Super Mario 1 is classic. Sure. I mean, so many great games that you just, like you said, 10 rounds was not nearly enough, but we had to cap it somewhere.
Donkey Kong Country. Fuck.
Many. Another great one. Like so many great games.
But we did our best, damn it. And we will post the results to Twitter as we always do. Feel free to take a vote or tell us what we missed, because there's so many that you could go to. So I'm sure there's a lot of honorable mentions out there that we didn't even cover yet.
Yeah, so that should do it for this week. We are planning on doing a mailbag show next week. So any questions that you have, whether it's with the upcoming rookie draft or the NFL draft, I shouldn't say rookie draft, NFL draft of the rookies, or any other fantasy related questions. It could be console game related questions, anything that we've done draft wise here in this off season. If you have best ball questions, dynasty redraft, we are here for it all. But yeah, next week is going to be a mailbag show. So come with your questions. If you join us in the chat live, we will answer your questions live on the air and give you the shout out. So please join us there. As always, follow us on Twitter if you don't already. My partner to my right at Jake Trowbridge. The podcast is at Drinking Fantasy. You can find me at FF Dusty Dog. As always, go out, give us a rate review wherever you do that for your podcast of choice or podcast platform of choice. Find us on YouTube every single week. We go live. We post out clips of the show. You can find content from us wherever you want, basically. So go out and do that. And until next week, folks, keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.